All right, we hit
I'm
record there.
not drinking.
Hit record over here. Okay, record. Everything's recording. Okay, this is episode 51, right?
51, kind sir, it is.
All right. Well, welcome everyone to Free Markets Green Earth, episode number 51. I'm Nicky P here as always with my good friend Ben, the Liberty Hippie. How are you doing there, Ben?
I'm good. Sort of. Well enough, right? How are you doing, Nicky?
You know me, hating the weather, wishing it was cooler than it is, but that's my lot in life.
Yeah, you're lucky, I guess you live up that way.
Yeah, if I lived down south, I'd have killed a lot of people by now.
You ever think about moving to Canada?
I've thought of Alaska. New Hampshire always looks good. I have a feeling I'm going to probably end up someplace further south, sadly. Like I'm going to hate life, but maybe I'll be a little free maybe at the same time.
If you go far enough south, central cooling it just comes like it's pretty standard. There's a few of the older houses that don't have it, but for the most part, anything you're going to find has central cooling in it. So
I will take your word on that. I will take it and upgrade it. So, anyways, today I got sent an article by a friend of the show, Drake.
Was he on? Wasn't he on back in what episode was that?
That was like 4 episodes ago.
Yeah, do the math.
Something like that. He sent me this. I won't say it's an article. It's kind of like a newsletter of sorts.
Yeah, I don't know. It's like I don't know. It was a well put together, lots of citations and everything. It was almost something you'd think you'd see in like a journal.
It's a World Rainforest Movement Bulletin 249 for March and April of 2020. And the headline for this particular collection of stories in this journal is "Protected Areas Feed Corporate Profiting and Destruction." It has a bunch of really interesting things. First thing that comes to mind is, man, the left is really getting fucking woke on basically all the shit that we've been telling them forever. Now, I think they're going to try and go the opposite direction with it than we would. But I'm excited that they're seeing, oh, hey, we've been right this whole time.
I don't know. I don't know that you. I suppose it's I'm giving too much here, but I don't know how you can look at this and see this and read this and say like it can go any further. You got to dial back the government intrusion. I don't know how you can do it any other way, but maybe you can.
Well, here's one of the things, and this is all going to kind of work to prove one of our greater theses that we have on the show. But so this thing, literally, I think like in the second paragraph, one of the things it points out is that you have all of these objectives from the ruling elite of the environmentalism conservation movement, and they're all about wild areas. But one of the things that it points out is it's like, so that's kind of bullshit, because people have actually been manipulating every single part of this world for thousands and thousands of years. Like, just because like even like the rainforests are places that we manipulated to be the way they are at some point in history, is one of the points that they're getting at. So this idea of wild is like, well, what the hell does that actually even mean? Moreover, the big thing that's going to happen is, so when you have all of these government responses to, protecting land areas, they don't ever do quite what you want them to do. And this is what I really wanted to have a conversation about, is when I was talking to one of my cousins the other day, and she was kind of giving me back and forth and like, why I believe the things I do about, I guess my right-wing anarchism. She would be, more along like the socialist left. And I was trying to illustrate to her like why I kind of see things the way I do from, I guess, quote unquote, right. And one of the questions I asked her, once we got past the who will build the roads shit and got into like the stuff that I really like, which is the environment. The question I asked her is that, so right now we're in a situation where, she's like, what about the national parks? And I'm like, great. Glad you brought them up. Every one of our national parks is under threat of one of the oil companies managing to convince a politician to just let them fucking drill there. So we're already in a place where what the fuck does that matter if it can just be bulldozed over for the right amount of money the government's getting its hands in the till.
Yeah, and I think that's a lot of what it kind of boils down to. When you centralize all this land into one organization, it's a whole lot easier to trade it off, to sell it out than it is for.
Maybe they'll say, "Oh, we're going to use this to feed orphans in the inner city too. We're gonna tug at your heartstrings and tell you exactly why we need it." Now, maybe 5% of it will actually get to orphans in the inner city, but it's just a cash grab for people that want more money. The thing that I gave her was like, so I want you to think about this. So at any minute, even in the best case scenario, even if you think that Democrats are going to be the ones to protect it, which nothing in history has shown me to be that the case. Like, it's just waiting for the right price for the right person. Then that means you're waiting for the person in office to just be enough of a scumbag to sell off mining rights and mineral rights to national parks. It could happen at any time. That's always something that you're under threat of. Now I want to ask you a question. What do you think is going to have Ted Turner give off his land for mineral rights? What do you think is going to convince the Sierra Club to give up their land for mineral rights? What do you think all of those Silicon Valley CEOs that have been buying up large tracts of land in the past couple of years, what do you think it's going to convince them to give up their land for mineral rights?
Yeah.
We're talking about people that are ideologically predisposed to want to protect nature. The only thing that can make them give up is eminent domain. Once again, the government coming in and taking the land from someone to put it to quote unquote better use, is I'm sure what they'd say. Yeah. And I just it on its face, I don't know how anyone can like stand up for government use of property in this case. It's just strategically inferior to privately held property.
Yeah, it is. I don't think you can argue with that. I think this goes back to the whole like what is wild thing. You look at all these. They're saying in this article, right? Wild comes from, like last 2,000 years. You use wild, the term wild land, and it implies that nobody lives there. If anybody does live there, like whatever, it's there for the taking, and it's there for, the domination and the subjugation, and it's mine. I can take it. And that's the same way like our national forests are, our national parks and everything, right? That was all of this was Native American owned land, not owned, but whatever. They lived here, and you shove them all onto a little postage stamp and turn the rest into a national park, and now it's state owned land. And I find it curious, then when the people screaming to protect them and keep them in government hands are probably the same ones that would scream and carry on about, like Columbus and the whole idea of whiteness or whatever. You know what I mean?
To me, I just see it's like the sheer the sheer idea that the government owns that property makes that property in a precarious situation.
Yeah.
Like the fact that the government controls what can be done with it immediately makes it under threat. Because at any minute, an overextended government can just say, fuck it, and sell it to whatever, for whoever, for whatever money, probably undervalue the land, because inevitably that's what they're going to do. And then, but the money to nothing but nothing other than probably, pocketing it, through campaign finance and shit like that. Just the idea that government has that land and can get rid of it for any reason they fucking want to, it frustrates me because it's like as far from protected as possible. And this particular bulletin, like that we mentioned earlier, like you go through this thing and it is just story after story of exactly that happening. Like they'll say it's for this, but then it gets used for this, and it's the government owns it, but it's all been leased out to this private entity. And we want to keep it a wild land, so these indigenous peoples that have been here for 200 years, we're going to throw their asses out. Well, if they've been there for hundreds of years, like they're part of the wild in the first fucking place.
Yeah, right. And that's it. And that's what it all just kind of comes down to, right? Like people are here, people are there. Like when you give it to government, they want money. They want money. They need money, right? And if they're not going to get it through taxes or whatever else, they will sell what they have. And if somebody happens to be there, sorry, I'm trying to find an article that the internet's working. I can talk to you, but I can't pull up an article. My browsers are down, but something just happened, and I don't know. I'm afraid to disconnect it and retry it. But there's an article not long ago about a pipeline. They're trying to run a pipeline through like the Appalachian Trail, and the hikers and everybody are super pissed about it, and they don't want that going through this vast expanse of wilderness. And I think it was the state, it might have been in West Virginia, I don't know, something like that, basically gave them like the pipeline, like the go ahead. Oh yeah, sure. Because it's the U.S. Forestry or whatever is the one that can issue a permit for that, so of course they're going to say yes, right? Because they get money for a permit. It's not just.
Well, the thing is what have we been saying? It's the whole the farce of the EPA from the beginning. Okay, and maybe you're not ready as a listener to whole cloth buy into me that the whole fucking thing's a scam designed to destroy the environment whenever they feel like it, and not have any accountability to the people. But one of the things that they notice in here is, so they have all of the NGOs and the governments, they want to have an expansion of what's called protected areas as a global solution to a lot of the climate ails and things of that nature. But the issue is that they go out, basically it's just it's a smoke screen. It's to give you the illusion that they're protecting things. I mean, all it is, let's designate this land as a protected area. So you have the idea that they're doing something to protect it, but they're just going, okay, well, who's the highest bidder that wants these rights? Basically, all they did was raise property value for people that want it.
Yeah, it's. I think I saw somewhere in there where there's something like they wanted to get like 50% of land qualified as a protected area or something like that. It was some absurd number. And when you think about that, where's that land going to come from? Who are they going to take that land from? Because with our population the size that it is, you're going to have to take that land from people, and where it's going to happen. Where the governments are going to take the land from. We've seen it happen here, 100 years ago, 200 years ago. The Native Americans out west and east, and it's happening now. And
can you say the disenfranchised,
right?
The poorest of the world gonna lose their shit.
And these are the same side, the same people, cheering on the disenfranchised and cheering on this, idea that we need to protect the environment, and we're going to do it by setting this land aside. And I don't know, just I don't know.
So
I can't wrap my head around it all. It's just too much stupid.
The thing that was really, really interesting to me with this article is like, this is clearly an organization. Like, you can go through and read this. Eventually it gets to like the problem of patriarchal societies and tribal environments. Like, it gets there. I'm actually a little surprised at how long it takes them to get to that part. But it's definitely, it makes all the keywords about social justice and things of that nature. But the core of it is that, look, everything they're telling us like they're going to do, it's all a big corporatist power grab. They're going to siphon all this land away from people who rightfully own it. We know what we really need to do an episode on. It's going to suck because I'll have to actually read the book. But Tales of an Economic Hitman.
Yeah.
I mean,
I feel like I read that once upon a time.
I would be surprised if you hadn't. But I mean, it's the entire premise of that book is very strictly like how the IMF and the World Bank come in and through the process that we're describing here, screw other nations out of their wealth. Steal it from people that don't really know the value of it. Giving
out bad loans and all that sort of crap. Yeah, I remember a bit of that. It is, and it is going through this and seeing like the connections between this government taking this land and then leasing it out to whatever other organization out there. I don't know how people cannot. I don't know how they can ignore that. I don't know how they cannot see like what's going on and how this is a very, very bad thing. Like it's beyond me. But I don't know.
So what do you see as being a solution? Like, what is the thing to do right now to being in the situation we're in? Do you think there is a solution?
See, I don't know. And that was something that I thought was kind of interesting. I started thinking a little bit towards the end of the article when they were talking about the patriarchal society there in India and, tribal stuff and who like in our world, right, where people break off and secede and you have very strong property rights and I know, this is mine and that's yours and we can agree on that or whatever. How does that work? Do you just, when there's a vast expanse of jungle and there's a tribe in there and they hunt all over, but maybe they only have a tiny village or a village that moves every other month. Like, what do you do with that? How do you solve that? Can you solve that, or does it have to be, they go live in Ted's backyard? What do we do?
Solve it by
I'm
being
sure.
excellent is my guess. You solve it by influencing that next generation that watches how awesome life is on your side of that line. That's how you do it.
Yeah.
And if you don't believe that, then you're a white supremacist. So,
yeah, I'm surprised the race thing didn't come up more. But
so I actually got into a conversation in one of the online groups today about, in particular, it was the ever essential bottom unity question. And, it was, do you think that, ANCAPs and ANCOMs can work together in any meaningful way? And we know my, thought process on that. But one of the guys came in and it was the ultimate idea that, eventually, like, you're going to be left there with ANCAMs and their ANCAPs and the ANCOMs are going to come for your shit. Now, ultimately, I believe if we get into that situation, like, I look at private property being different than a lot of people do. Like, to me, I look at private property as a technology. Because prior to private property, everything was kind of communally owned by the God King of a general vicinity. And then borders were disputed by one God King to the next God King. And then he'd send people to die to carve out a little bit more of the border or take this land, that. Everything was more or less kind of disputed in that fashion. Eventually, like, we got to this place where we have this idea of private property ownership, and with that comes responsibilities. that comes stewardship. With that comes an ability to take care of the resources. And that doesn't exist prior to that. Now, maybe that didn't make a difference when there weren't that many people on Earth, but there are that many people on Earth. So maintaining resources in a reasonable level through, prices and price discovery, things of that nature, it's more important than ever. So we have this amazing technology that basically people just want to ignore, because with the private property, you have the ability to solve every fucking border dispute ever. I own it. Here's my contract.
Yeah.
They'll say, well, you need governments to enforce contracts. No, I don't. Because a border is between two people. And then there's 3 or 4 other people in the vicinity around us, I'm sure, that they don't want their fucking property taken from them. So it's in their best interests to help maintain my property rights so that their property rights are maintained. So the idea that you have, like you're saying, you're going to have a communist entity come in and they're just going to start swallowing everything up. First off, I don't see how anything like that could happen at scale, because you're always going to have people, feeders that are going to come in and take advantage of the best intentions of the people at large. And then they're going to come and they're going to say, okay, well, give us your land. Well, it's in none of the other private property holders' best interests to allow that to happen. Like, you have a contract, like it's in their interests to uphold that contract and make sure that it's maintained. And if that's just rounding up a posse to protect things, well, they'll fucking make it happen, I'm sure.
Yeah. I get it. I see it. But I almost feel like that's what has been happening over the last 200 and some odd years.
And see, that's the issue.
Not necessarily that this was ever like, in Capistan, but
no, but that's the problem.
Slowly but surely, people have been sucking up and taking what isn't theirs, and right, and all through the force of government.
See, that's the problem. What you're seeing is the collectivism that has tainted the private property system. Because how is that stuff changing hands? Almost exclusively through eminent domain, through the government taking it and selling it off to people. Okay.
Yeah. No, I'm not suggesting that. I'm suggesting that what you're saying won't happen.
Not to mention
the leeches won't come and slowly suck things away. They will, and we've seen that happen through.
Well, no, that's my problem.
Through
that's
government,
that's my point. That's why I'm a strict property rights person, because without eminent domain, how do you do that? Are you going to come in and fucking warlord and take over all this shit when all of these people are prepared to protect it because they don't want theirs to be the next to fall?
Yeah, and
I would like to think so. We're poisoned. We're so thoroughly poisoned by collectivism right now that, like, it seems impossible to imagine like a private system. Like, we have border disputes now because we have faulty records. We have, you can't follow back far enough to see when something was fucking owned in the first place and when did it change hands. Like, there's no way to. You need to get to a full 100% participation, like first generation system, where there's smart contracts on every fucking piece of land. Guess what? We have 3D imaging. We've got GPS, private fucking contracts. We have the ability to literally map off every square inch of the planet and determine whose it is, mark it in the fucking books, and it only changes hands when they choose to let it change hands. Like, that's not something that was ever possible before, and that's why things were as messy as they were. Technology fixes everything, as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah,
I'm sure our good buddy. And our most downloaded episode, Bellamy, he would disagree with us, but that's one of the most fundamental things that has plagued humanity forever. And so the idea that private property doesn't fix one of the most asinine things we've ever had to deal with as human beings is just, to me, I look at communists and collectivists as being just Luddites. They don't want to ignore the fact that, hey, we gave you the fucking computer, this brilliant tool to helping maintain resources, and you just want to fucking pretend it's not there. And all of these issues, like we're talking about today, and in the way that governments kind of mask out that stuff, the impulse to take advantage of the property is never going to go away. The government has the same impulse you or I do. They also have the ability to steal that property. That is the key. They're not going to protect it any more than you or I would. In fact, it can almost be assumed, because they're not driven by ideology, they're not going to protect it as much as you or I would do.
They don't. We've seen that.
Yeah, I mean, it's you can see that literally everywhere we go. Look at how many national parks have fucking oil pipelines running through them right now.
Yeah. I don't know, man. I don't know. I don't know how you do it, because it doesn't seem like it's. I don't know. I'd love to see the national parks just sold off. Break them up. But how do you break them up? Even how do you break them up? It's I don't know. It's a mess.
I like it. The one thing I did say is that the transition would be messy.
Yeah.
And I think you would have to have a strong-willed population willing to say, "Fuck you, we won't buy that," because we have too many large corporations that have been allowed to amass great wealth that they otherwise wouldn't have through government help.
Yeah.
Protection, monopolization, things of that nature that government oversight has allowed to happen. Like I said, the EPA gives private rights to certain companies, not others, and all you need to do to get the rights to have a bunch of money and stuff friend in the department, that kind of thing.
I wonder. I like to hope that is becoming more out there, that people are starting to see that more and more.
Well, like I say, this article,
right, and so like between this article, you think even now, just like about the COVID, like thinking about the COVID and what businesses have been lost, right? The small businesses are the ones that are going under. And I think people are going to see that. I think people are going to see that, like, okay, well, these big corporations, like were able to get through, they were able to get government help. They, like, what does that say?
I think most people still see the corporations as being the problem. The thing is that I'm heartened by the fact that, like, say, this article we just read, some people are noticing that the reason they're a problem is because they have this thing that's utilizing governmental power to tilt hands in one direction or another. And maybe they don't come to the conclusions we do, but that's one hell of an insight to see people start getting, especially ones that are ideologically on the other side of us. To me, that strikes me as maybe we have some hope that we can find some common ground. Like, I don't mind anyone who wants to collectivize a section of private land and maintain it. That doesn't bother me at all. It's when they don't respect that there are some private borders. And you can call me a statist, but to me, it's not about states. Like, I guess if I were to say a state should be a person for their own private property, like you maintain your own state and everyone has their own state.
Yeah, I think so.
That would be my goal.
Yeah, I think you break it down like that.
And if for no other reason than to protect what you think is worth protecting. You can't rely on anyone else to protect shit for you. And I guess that, to me, that's the core insight of this, is that I really want people to see that they can't rely on anyone else to protect shit for them. They have to do it themselves. And yes, it's an investment, but what the hell else is worth that? Like we're talking about our fucking planet. Like if you can't fucking find some money to go and protect a piece of the planet, then like you're not going to have a planet to come back to.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see how it goes in the next 50 years, I think, as land is becoming more scarce, and you see that in prices and everything, and some of that's inflated, but some of that I think is real to a degree, and who's going to be the ones that can foot the bill for that, who can pay for that, and it's going to be
well, it's not even about like what the land's worth, it's about what the land is worth for a given use. And the fact of the matter is that government intervention has fucked up all price signals. Like don't even get me started. Did you listen to Dan Reed's episode on corn today?
No.
It was getting into like how fucked up our agribusiness is because of corn. Just corn. Just focusing on corn alone, like we did with milk a couple months ago.
Yeah.
Dude, like, oh my God. The idea that like the the FDA is out to like, or the agricultural department is out to help anyone is just fucking laughable.
Yeah, yeah. I mean,
Dude, in that thing he was talking about how like we literally had a drought at a moment when they sold off all of our grain reserves to Russia, and he's like, oh, we love it. That means all the prices go up for the farmers and they get to make more money.
yeah, of course.
And you're like, okay, so while fucking over everyone else in the country by artificially raising prices.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's the. I mean, food is the. You can't talk about food. You can't look at food. You can't look at that industry at all because it's just so backwards and distorted and just wrong. Just God, between the subsidization of prices of just exactly that, like, so the farmer gets to make more money now because we've artificially inflated the prices. People foot the bill. But if we had a surplus and the farmer was hurting, well, we're going to subsidize him. We're going to give him some more money, and we'll keep those prices artificially high. And it's just it's insane. I mean, I look at food now, and just
And what are you giving him more money for? Mismanaging.
yeah.
Which, by the way, is why we have futures markets. Like, for unforeseen circumstances, futures markets are basically insurance policies for the fucking agricultural business. It's so that they don't lose their shirt. But once again, man, I'm not an expert on futures markets. I wish more people kind of knew more about what that whole thing is. Learning about that
Yeah.
little life hack was a bit of an aha moment for me, we'll just say. So I guess anything else you want to add today, or we can call it there? We're just past the 30-minute mark. So
I don't know. I just hope people start to see, to realize, to recognize that, like, it's not just these corporations that are screwing everybody over. It's they could not do it without the aid of the state. And that's, hope that people see that. I think they are.
I
We'll
think
see.
I think some people are seeing it at least. So
Yeah.
all right, folks. Well, that was episode number 51 of Free Market Screen Earth. I hope you enjoyed it. Hope you learned a little something. Hope you are excited to go out and start owning environmentalism for those of us that aren't commies.
Whee!
Go check out freemarketscreeners.com if you want to get the show notes or learn how to contact us and let us know, hey, I'd like to hear you guys talk about this. What are your thoughts on that? Look up some history and stuff for me. But otherwise, you have yourselves a good one.
Peace. Oh man, we gotta talk about like